It is commitment week. Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Miami, UCLA, Nebraska, and more. Let's talk recruiting.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets when they win their first $5 bet. We've got stuff to talk about from coast to coast, from UCLA to Nebraska to Michigan, down south, Georgia, Alabama, Miami, and more. This is going to be a fun week, and I'm just catching up as I get back into the state of Alabama from Florida. I was just down there for Future 50, the most important underclassmen event of the year by a mile. Thanks to all the people at Under Armour and everybody else at IMG for helping put that event on. It's a lot of fun. I'll have another podcast about it soon. But today we're going to be talking about the commitments that just happened, a few that are getting ready to happen, and where does your school stand overall? Are you happy with your class? Are they meeting needs? We're going to be talking about that because NIL is all in this business today. Like, there's a big start with that, with the first guy we're going to talk about here. And how does that impact your school? Are you ponying up enough money for the elite 5-star kids, whatever program you root for? All that today on the Recruiting Blitz here on the Portal Podcast. So the first player I want to talk about is Carter Meadows. He's a defensive end out of DC that just committed to Michigan. And this is a young man that everybody had an opinion about where he was going to go. I'd heard Ohio State, I'd heard Penn State, and then Michigan made a late charge. And for full disclosure here, Michigan is flat out on a recruiting heater right now, and they're not done. One of the kids that I think they're going to get, but this is recruiting. But Andre Clark out of Hermitage High School in Richmond, Virginia, corner. Looks like Michigan's going to get him by an hour or so after this podcast goes up. So full disclosure, I did not know what his final decision was as of recording today, but they're going to get a bunch of guys. We're going to talk about several, but Carter Meadows is the key to this. Michigan recruiting kind of went slow. Recruited all the same kids you would expect the Wolverines to go after, kids in Ohio, Detroit, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, etc. And then they spread out across the country. Some Florida kids, Texas kids, etc. But getting Carter Meadows is a game changer. A lot of people thought he was going to go to Penn State. And there was rumors it was Ohio State. But then the Wolverines get him. They made a very large, from what I'm told, NIL offer. So I want to bring this back up again later in the podcast. But what is the number you think an elite pass rusher? He's like 6'4", 230, 220, somewhere in that range. It just twitches all get out. National top 10 recruit by multiple services, and deservedly so. His film is legit. What's too much to bring in a recruit? Is there a number? Does it matter? Especially if it's not a quarterback. Obviously, the whole Bryce Underwood thing last year, over $10 million to get Bryce to sign with the Wolverines and flip from LSU. But I think this is a case, and I'll make this throughout this podcast today, where it's okay to pay for something because it's a defensive end. If you're not getting to the opposing quarterback, you're not getting it done. And it's not like Penn State, Ohio State, and other programs for that matter did make overtures towards Carter Meadows. They did. Michigan just ponied up the most, from what I was told, considerably so. I don't think there's anything wrong with that when you are looking at a probable NFL player. But I just want you to think about this. We're going to come back to it at the end of the podcast. Here are a few of the other guys that Michigan has got besides Carter Meadows here recently, and they're all very good players. Michigan, again, they are a heater right now. Malachi Lee, offensive tackle out of Hawaii, very powerful player, kind of fits the mantra of what you would think with Sherrod Moore. I really like him a lot. And they also flipped a kid from SMU. It's so weird. I remember when he committed to SMU, a kid from Virginia. It was wild. Markel Dabney, a linebacker, another kid out of Virginia. He's flipped to Michigan. They've got a few other guys on the board. It looks like they're going to go their way. I just talked about one of them a second ago, Andre Clark. But right now, Michigan's class is on the up. NIL or not, the Wolverines are moving up, and this has a chance to be a top 10 class now. We'll see with all the stuff that's going on with the NCAA and how that impacts Michigan. But you got to give Sherrod Moore and his staff credit. They're in on a ton of guys. Now it's closing time. Again, this is the most important week of the year. More commitments this week than any other. We're going to see if Michigan can get it done. Their rival, Ohio State, had a couple of good players join the fold as well. Defensive linemen, 2 of them. Cameron Brickell out of IMG. He's a Philadelphia kid, another kid that Penn State probably would have liked. I know Michigan and a bunch of other schools recruited him at one point in time. 6'2", 6'3", 305, 310 pounds. Good kid. I had a chance to interview him earlier this year. And they also add Damari Simeon out of New Jersey. They've got 2 pure D tackles here. Plus they got Carl Wilder as a strong side end / defensive tackle. I think he could play either. Ohio State's D-line class is really good. If they would have got Carter Meadows, it would have been crazy. But it's still really good. Don't look for Ohio State's defense to take much of a drop off. They're doing a really good job. Speaking of big-time players and defensive linemen, Clemson gets Keyshawn Stansel out of Clayton, North Carolina, one of the best defensive tackle prospects in the country. This is a kid that Miami and a whole bunch of other schools tried to sway. He's headed to Clemson, and they have continually gotten players out of the state of North Carolina for years and really rated that state. Good job by Dabo and his staff to get it done. Legend Bay, 5'10", 175 pounds out of North Forney, just outside of Dallas. Plays quarterback in high school, but he's very athletic, projected to play slot. He could play DB, but he's going to go play for the Volunteers. I think he's going to be a slot for them. Really athletic kid. Nice pickup for the Volunteers. Brandon Anderson, interior offensive lineman, 6'4", about 320 pounds. He plays at North Cobb High School, just north of Atlanta. He's going to Mizzou. He could have went to a lot of different places. He was originally committed to the Tennessee Volunteers, but he's going to play for Mizzou. We also have Deacon Schmidt, Oklahoma. They need as much good recruiting news as they can get after the unfortunate season they had last year with all the injuries. This is a guy that's going to go play for one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. He's from Colorado. He picked the Sooners over the Buffaloes, and he also picked them over Bama. James Johnson, maybe the top guy for some of the schools down south in the country. They could have went with other guys too, but I've heard a lot of good things about James Johnson. Defensive tackle, Miami Northwestern. He just transferred from North Fort Myers. He picks the Bulldogs over a host of different schools. Florida, Miami, Alabama, Texas, all kinds of programs wanted him. James Johnson is going to Georgia. Oscar Rios, quarterback out of Downey, California, picked Arizona over UCLA. Arizona's getting a really good quarterback. They always seem to sneak in a few guys out of the greater Los Angeles area that people didn't expect, especially as well as UCLA's been recruiting. That's a good job by them. When we come back, I've got a ton more players to talk about. And we're also going to talk about NIL in this week as an overview. That is next here on the Portal Podcast. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's baseball season. We're almost to the All-Star game. Saw Aaron Judge just hit his 30th home run. So let's talk about the other side of the baseball game that's so important, the starting pitchers. If you're looking at any baseball action, how well has today's starting pitcher been in the last 3 to 5 games? That's something I've always looked at. Just with trends, you're only as good as your next day starting pitcher, especially if you're going up against somebody like Aaron Judge. So take a look at that when you're making your bets at FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest recruiting information. This has been a fun week or so for me, and I'll talk a little bit about my travels here the last few days. But let's get back into the commitments. We just got done talking about Oscar Rios going to Arizona. Anthony Kennedy from Little Rock, Arkansas is going to play for Miami, 6'6", 330, defensive lineman. The Canes have been prioritizing bigger, stronger, faster up front. They're really trying to build through the trenches under Mario Cristobal. Anthony Kennedy could have went to a lot of different programs that offers Arkansas, Georgia, a whole bunch of SEC schools. Nice pickup for the Canes. Georgia does pick up Chase Calicut. one of the more unique DBs I've seen this year and last year. He plays at North Shore High School just outside of Houston. He's 6'2", 6'3", super long, super rangy. This is the kind of kid that Kirby Smart loves, the measurables. They get it done over in state Texas. Some people thought he was going to pick the horns, but UJ wins out for Chase Calicut. Nayland Scott, wide receiver, out of McEachern High School, just outside of Atlanta, flips from Arizona State. He will be a Nebraska Cornhusker. He's got some size to him. He could be a boundary receiver, maybe be a flanker. Nice pickup for Nebraska. Edward Baker, yes, Baltimore. He's headed to Tennessee. I don't know what it is, but Tennessee has always done well in the Maryland, Virginia area. They don't get enough credit. This is another example of that. Big interior offensive lineman going to play for the Vols. And they also keep an in-state player home. Zay Anderson out of Greenville, Tennessee is going to be a Vol. He's a corner. Ben Mabinga, that's a young man out of Buford High School, offensive lineman. Florida State and several other schools do not get him. He's going to go play for Arkansas, one of the top offensive linemen in the state of Georgia. Safety or wide receiver, which will it be for Torrey Davis? Some think safety, some think receiver. We'll see. UCLA wins out for the player out of Fairview High School in Boulder, Colorado. Desian Ellis, 6'2", 175 pounds, out of Franklin Parish down in Louisiana. He's going to stay home and play for the Bayou Bengals. LSU gets cornerback Desian Ellis. Running back Amari Latimer. This is for you, okay? All you Wisconsin fans are always on me. This one is a great pickup. Maybe the best pickup Wisconsin's had in the last 3 to 5 years in terms of just pure talent. I've had a chance to see Amari Latimer play. That is a dude. Straight up. I saw him play last year for Sandy Creek. He was the best player on the field in that game that I went to, had a bunch of Division I players. He was the most dominant guy there. If Wisconsin's going to start moving back up, this is the kind of recruit they got to get. Really good player out of the greater Atlanta area. Latimer's over 200 pounds, can catch, can run, can block. I think he will have an instant impact for the Badgers. Xavier Jackson, Bergen Catholic, defensive back. He's going down to Chapel Hill to play for Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. Another really good player. So we're just going over some of these guys. And I'm all the way down. I'm getting ready to talk about another 5-star just to put it in perspective. There have been a ton of commitments the last few days while I'm traveling. But Xavier Griffin out of Gainesville High School in Georgia has committed to Bama. If you're down to like the 5th or 6th guy, you're talking about you get to a 5-star, that's one thing. But I'm down like 20 guys. There are so many good players committing right now. I can't even remotely keep up. And it's going to get busier. So we're going to talk about that because Bama and all these schools, they're going to have a lot of different decisions coming up. So I want to give you just a few. This is not in any way, shape, or form a complete list, but a few of the commitments getting ready to happen. Talked about this earlier. Andre Clark out of Virginia. I think he's going to go to Michigan. We'll see where he goes. Cornerback, we got Preston Carey, one of the best defensive tackles in the country out of IMG Academy. He's going to be announcing his decision later today. Matter of fact, this evening, we got Devarius Surratt out of Crest High School in Shelby, North Carolina, safety, 6 foot, 185 pounds. He's going to make his decision tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We've got Amari Johnson out of Jackson Academy in Jackson, Mississippi, wide receiver. He's going to be making his decision on July 1st at 2 o'clock. Darian Albert, defensive lineman out of Jackson Academy. They got all these kids from Jackson making their announcement at 2 tomorrow. Defensive lineman, 6'2", 305 pounds. TJ White, again, Jackson Academy. He's making his decision tomorrow. 6'1", 230 pounds, big-time linebacker. Those are just a few of the guys. And then we get into the end of the week, Kendall Gravel, some of these other guys. It's just incredible how many guys are making their decision this week. It's probably as important a week for a handful of schools in particular, like Wisconsin getting Latimer. But there's a chance for some schools to also distance themselves. How does Ohio State? How does Notre Dame? Like they're trying to get Caden Finley and some other receivers. This is a really important week. And that brings me to my final point, the one that I talked about at the beginning of the show. To finalize on some of these recruits, you've got to make a decision to really go after kids and build relationships. That's first, and it never changes. Relationships is the number one factor. But to win the game, sometimes the kids are really conflicted. I could go to this school, that school, or that school. I'd be happy at any of them. Yes, NIL is a factor. And sometimes the decision changes with it. And that makes fans mad when they don't get a kid and they don't say nothing when their school does. Fan is short for fanatic, and there's a lot of hypocritical thoughts with that. But I want to bring up that question again that I asked earlier in the show. If it's an elite player, especially a quarterback, and in this case, I talked about Carter Meadows picking the Michigan Wolverines, they threw down a bag. By all accounts, that's what I heard. They threw down a bag. He's an elite defensive end, though. This is a probable NFL player. Are you okay with your school doing it? And if not, why? This is a really, really tough business. Recruiting, it is just fractions. For one kid going from one coast to the other, it's very small because they build so many good relationships. Are you okay with your school throwing down for like key positions, corner, a big-time receiver, a defensive lineman, in addition to obviously quarterback? That's the self-explanatory, or an offensive tackle. Like, there's a reason to do that. There aren't many of those kids that hit the portal. And if you are, you don't have to necessarily announce it to the world, but if you want to bring up a question or what I think about a number is for some of these kids, I'm going to start talking about that a little bit. Comment on YouTube, talk about it there. I'm going to be talking about it on some other platforms as well. If you really think that this is an interesting opportunity to get into the discussion point, I know I love it. How much would you throw out for a quarterback as compared to, and we're going to do tiers here. Is it offensive tackle next? Is it defensive end? What spot for you is after quarterback? And if you think something's more important than quarterback, I'd love to hear it. I don't know how that's possible, but you can certainly make your own comments there. But I think it's okay for D end, for offensive. Like if you can find an LT, like a true left tackle, and you needed that NIL to get over the top, especially if it's your rival, I get it. And there's all this discussion about this stuff all the time. Message boards on X, TikTok, anywhere else. It's here to stay. Now, obviously, Congress, NCAA, et cetera, they're trying to change the rule, but it's still going to come down to money in a lot of cases, and we'll see how the rules change. But it's pay for play now, whether they want to admit it or not. It is. They're not, quote unquote, employees yet, but they are. They're just trying to stay away from the legal part of that because they don't want to pay for a whole bunch of stuff in regards to injuries and all that other stuff. That's what they're trying to avoid. But these kids, they're basically employees. We'll see when that gets legalized, if it does, but that's a court fight for another day. So once again, how much are you willing to pay for like these spots, and what's your tiers? Quarterback for me is number one. And now it's offensive tackle because there just aren't enough of them to get in the portal. If you don't hit at offensive tackle at the high school ranks, you're in trouble. After that, it's D-line, and then it's corner. It used to be D-line for me was second, but offensive tackle, man, they just don't go in the portal at all. It's close between offensive tackle and defensive tackle, but the really good ones just don't get in the portal. I don't care if they're at a 4-8 program or whatever. So the quarterback's still the top of the board for me, and we'll see. Receiver is a caveat. It can't just be a receiver. It's got to be an obvious dude, an impact player that can change the game. If you get those kind of guys, it makes a difference. So to that point, and for those of you that are on YouTube down on the bottom of the screen, if you want to see some highlight videos of recruits, I just put up a bunch. Part of it's going to be on my TikTok account, Locked On the Portal. If you have any interest in that stuff at all, I love watching recruit videos. Obviously, I put them up. I record them all the time. That's a great place. I've got them on the YouTube channel, Locked On the Portal's YouTube channel as well. It's the same videos, but you can check out either one of those there. And we're also going to be talking about Future 50. I've got that coming up either later today or tomorrow. Depends on when I get to it, but a lot to talk about. A bunch of schools have already made a move for several recruits all across the country that are going to be in contention for 5-star status. Talk about Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Michigan, Notre Dame, you name it. Got a lot of stuff to discuss. That'll be here on the Portal Podcast very soon as well. Recruiting never ends. Class of 26 or class of 27. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. Please come back and see us again soon. This has been the Portal Podcast.